Okay. Now. Be right back. Lori, don't see you again. Okay. The list from the last, I guess, from the last message, so I see where everybody is. And you're Melinda Kaufman. Oh, okay, I'm Melinda Conley.
Okay.
Michelle Keller. Okay.
Do you want better at this one? Oh, finally, but it was 16 and 3. Not great, but yes, getting better. Awesome timing.
Oh, yeah.
Start the new school year, but
Well, I know, and one of my friends' daughters is a elementary music teacher who got COVID like in secondary school, and has been out
Good to go.
Good to go. All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, September 2nd, 11:15. I'm going to call this public hearing to order. I'm going to pass it on. I know the union side, you will begin your presentation, sorry, not presentation, your side, and I'll pass it on.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to call as our first witness, Abraham Macias. Thank you. Hi. So,
I'm sorry, before you begin, do we need to swear him in?
oh, yes.
We do need to swear him in.
Sure. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And can you state your name for the record?
Abraham Macias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Macias, are you a certified math teacher?
Yes, I am.
And how many years have you taught?
Over 10 years.
Okay, and how long have you been employed with Hartford Public Schools?
For public schools is my 3rd year.
Great. Where else have you taught?
I've taught, I'm from El Paso, Texas, Isleta Independent School District. I taught in Albuquerque Public Schools. I've taught from their Dallas Independent School District is the last school I taught at before Hartford Public. And I did teach as a TA at the University of New Mexico while I got my master's.
Great. What classes did you teach in Hartford?
In Hartford, I was teaching seminar, Algebra 1, transition to algebra, which we call TTA.
About how many students did you teach each year?
Each year, 90 to 100.
And about how many students would you say were in one class?
I say up to 30.
Okay. Can you describe the demographics of one of your classes?
So I teaching algebra, I have higher marginalized populations in a public school. I tend to have more Spanish speaking, English language learners, not necessarily even Spanish speaking. I have higher special ed populations, not to mention, of course, different race, higher Latino content, African American, whatever you say.
Could you just keep your voice up
Yeah.
for me? Thank you.
Or let's say Black and brown populations.
Does, in your experience, generally, does every classroom have rules for student behavior?
Yes,
Did your classroom have rules?
it did.
What were those rules?
3 simple rules. First is the golden rule, treat each other with respect. I will treat others as I expect to be treated. It's my first rule. The second rule is about focus, and it's about when I'm in front of the classroom to make sure that the students are seated and quiet unless given permission. And that's the majority of the class time. And then at the end, the final rule is to never give up.
Okay. So I'm going to have my first exhibit. How are we going to number these?
So I think we'll number them teacher 1, T1, if that
Okay.
works for everyone.
So T1.
T1, right?
Mhm. Q1. Are these your class rules?
Yes,
And where was this picture taken?
this is the front of my classroom.
Okay. And what would happen if students broke a rule?
I point to which rule they're breaking. So let's say a student is even sleeping. I tell them you're giving up. And so I point to that rule, you're breaking my rule. Then I point to the said consequence. The first consequence here being, I just warned you, the verbal warning. And so on.
So the consequences are posted also.
Yes,
And how often would you issue a warning?
it's the first warning. Once I point to it and I tell you this is your warning, this is your warning.
In the course of a class, how often might you
Oh,
issue a warning to any student?
the beginning of the year, you get a lot more, lots of warnings. Towards the end of the year, less warnings and the students warn each other.
Did you have assigned seats in your class?
Yes.
Okay, and this will be T2. Are these your seating charts?
Yes, they are.
Did you use proximity as a behavior management strategy?
I did.
Is that evidenced, if we turn to the block 6 chart? Is it one chart is block 1 first and the other says 6? Is there evidence of proximity seating in this chart?
Yeah, I had to improvise and I had to make a group of student desks next to my own desk.
Can you explain to everybody where that's indicated in your seating chart?
Towards next to the table, there's one on one of the corners, it's called the teacher desk. In that corner, you can see there's 4 student desks around it.
Okay.
The students will go there voluntarily or whether they've broken a consequence too.
Okay. And how often would you change the seating charts?
The seating charts, I use data. So every time we collect data, ideally every 6 weeks, 6 to 9 weeks. Minimum of every quarter.
How would you incorporate that data into the seating chart?
So I make note cards. I take the student data and then on the note card, I'll put demographics, if they're boy or girl. I'll also put whether they need help, or they're in the middle, or if they excelling. And I have sometimes my co-teacher create them or other students can create my seating charts. It's a process that's a little quick and I was hoping to show other teachers. But yeah, you just shuffle the cards and then you put them in. You try not to have more guys, certain criteria I give them. You don't want more guys outnumbering the girls, but you can have girls outnumbering the guys according to some of my trainings. And stuff like that, yeah. You always want the Spanish speakers with support, etc.
Going back to T1, in terms of your consequences, what would consequence 2, a seat change, involve?
That is where I tell the student you must move from your desk. You can move to the front if there's an empty seat. Sometimes, of course, given their behavior, I'll tell them a seat to pick. Or sometimes I'll tell the students if they can help me tell the student to change seats because they are clearly not creating a safe environment, learning environment.
Mhm.
And usually, if not, that's when I tell them if I have to call home and then call security, let's not get there.
And would part of a seat change involve moving a student to the teacher desk as indicated in the exhibit T2?
Yes, that's why they're there. Yeah, they know.
How often would you call home for consequence 3?
That's very often. So again, towards the end of the year, the goal is very minimal for behavior problems. At the beginning of the year, at least, weekly, you have incidents.
Okay, this would be 3. Do you recognize this document, Mr. Macias?
Yes,
Can you explain to us what it is?
my rosters is a tool. Here you can see highlighted are my home calls. Keep data on here, with grades.
So how are the home calls indicated? on the chart?
Here they're highlighted. I wrote home call. I have my own system, CB's call back. All the SWs that spoke with mother, spoke with father, spoke with grandmother, spoke with grandfather, call back. The pluses and the minuses, that tells the minus is a bad call. There's none on here, but I have many of those as well.
Good. Okay, I'm gonna back out exhibit S26. Here we go. Are you familiar with this email?
Yes, where I'm emailing Ms. Webley.
Okay, in this email from Ms. Webley, is there mention of your behavior management system?
Yes.
And how is that mentioned?
On the second page, under the globes. I remember this date.
Okay, can you read for us what she says about your behavior management system?
She also praised me later that day in front of other teachers, letting them know that there was misbehavior in my classroom, and I pointed to the rules and the consequences in front of the classroom to redirect behaviors. And I had to do the two consequences. I had to give a warning in front of the principal. They kept misbehaving, so then I had to tell them, now we're changing seats.
Very good. And did you acknowledge students when they followed the rules in the classroom?
A lot, yes.
How?
I love to call their homes right here for good news, if you can tell the plus signs. But next to my desk is a wall of praising the student work. It's called like a wonder wall. I don't know, I need to write the Hall of Fame. And so I could post their work, and it says on there, you can get extra credit in my classroom. You can get extra snacks if you like. You can also get a good call home. And then on my Google Classroom, I like to post their name so they can show their homes. I tell them, go home and show them I posted your name, you scored high on the test.
Okay. There was mention in previous testimony of a pizza party. Was that one of your rewards for following your class rules?
It was.
How often did you provide pizza as a reward?
That was my third annual pizza party. The incident.
Okay, so once a year?
Once a year, but then that last year, many times. Yeah, there was more.
Okay. Were there behavioral concerns with the pizza party the third year?
That one incident, the first incident, yes.
And do you recall why that happened?
People didn't ask why it went bad. I knew it was gonna go bad. I was rushed. I didn't know if I was gonna be returning for that end of the week, the end of the day. I had promised to my students that I would give them pizza all year. It was posted in my Google Classroom. It was known. And so when I was brought back to the school after a week with administrative pay, with leave, I took the opportunity to fulfill my promise to the students and give them pizza. And I knew it was rushed and that it might happen, but I had done it the years before, and unfortunately, it just didn't go well. Well, for some students, it went well. For many others, it did not.
Were there any students that did not get the positive reward that day due to the behavioral problems?
Some students did not. I told them.
How did you remedy that?
So some students told me they had good experiences. The ones who told me they didn't, I said, I want to show you my room can be a safe space, and you need to do this, that I've done this right. And I want to provide you the reward. So yeah, let me give you a more private in my room, small group. You can invite students and you can have a pizza party. And so I did just like more controlled pizza party.
Okay. Ms. Webley had testified that she did not give you permission to bring in pizza after the day of that problem. Did you have permission to continue offering pizza as a reward?
She gave me instructions, so I interpret that as permission, yes.
And how was that granted?
She verbally came that day of the incident and in front of students, let me know as long as it doesn't leave the teacher's lounge and as long as it doesn't leave my room, or as long as it's not in the teacher's lounge, nothing should be in the teacher's lounge, and it doesn't leave my room.
Very good. I'm also going to refer back to S18. In this email, also from Principal Webley, there was mention of students coming to your class without permission. Did you allow students to come to your class without permission?
Never, no.
What was your procedure when students would come to your class from another class?
They had to have express permission from another teacher. It was the policy with them.
And what's the usual way that permission would have been?
A note card, or I would call the teacher to make sure, because they do try to lie.
What was your procedure when students wanted to leave your classroom?
They want to leave my classroom, they have to have permission, they have to have a pass. That's the policy. If they leave more than 10 minutes, then I have to call security.
And go to next exhibit. Is T with the 4. Okay, are you familiar with this document?
Yes,
What is it?
this is a PowerPoint where I would give to my students, it's a lesson.
And in this lesson, is there a do now?
Do not, yes, there is.
It's on the second page. What is the purpose of do now?
The first, when a student enters a class, those first minutes are crucial in setting up how the rest of the lesson falls in place. So the do now gives students, we try to structure a lot of the things they need for that lesson that day.
So how did you employ this structure of do now?
So here it's, they have time to get their materials. If you can see, they can ask questions, and they have math problems to do in 10 minutes. To do the problems, they go to joinmyquiz.com. That's also quizzes. There's usually a number they type into the website. You can see it's not structured intentionally, and that's so students have independent learning. So they have student choice, so they have ownership of the learning. That is intentional. But I have also structured them getting their materials, asking questions, and completing math problems. It's also time for them to do social emotional learning. When a kid comes to class, these 10 minutes, you have to get them to do the math, but they also have their needs and they have what they want to do for that day. So I intentionally, sometimes it looks like organized chaos in my class, but I assure you the students are getting things they have to get off their chest. And I'm structuring, following the rules, and so are the students. We're all.
Okay. How did you end each class?
I ended the class with test questions and the Google form, like where they self-evaluate. And that could be seen on the last page. It's called a demonstration of learning. And this is where they have to show me what they've learned, and I give them, this is where we want to replicate testing environment. We want it to be quiet for 5 to 10 minutes here while they try some test problems that I have gotten from the district and tied to the book work for the day.
Does this sample lesson show a beginning, middle, and an end?
It does, yes.
Okay, I want to return to exhibit S5. Does Coach Roslyn Champlain comment on your lesson sequence?
Yes, she does.
What does she say?
That the teacher appropriately sequences all learning activities in parentheses with a beginning, middle, and end to build on each other and move students towards mastery.
There was also in previous testimony questions about the quiz is. Where did you get the quiz is questions for your lessons?
So the quiz is a tool, and I type in from the book and the tests given from the district. The wording is highly important. So I don't do my own wording. I pull it from district curriculum.
So are the quizzes questions coming from part of the math curriculum?
Yes.
Okay, where would you get those questions from?
So the quizzes in the beginning, I would get from the book. It just points them to a page and a number. Sometimes I put the wording so they can just get it on the computer. Sometimes no, so that they have to get the wording from the book. Or the released test questions, the interim assessment. And those are like replicate PSAT questions to prepare them. They need those skills, test taken.
Okay, so just to be clear, the quizzes does not generate the question itself.
I mean, it could, but that's not how I use it.
And then we look back at S4. What is this document?
This is an email from, looks like from Michelle.
And attached to the email,
This is where she's describing my classroom the one time she visited.
so it's a notes on an observation.
Yes.
Okay. And on page 2, there is discussion under prepare quizzes activity. Where did that question come from?
That question is a released interim assessment item. It's from the district, it's the math curriculum.
How did the district interim assessment question get into the quizzes format?
I printed out my test, I have it when I create my lessons, and then I type it in.
And our district interim assessments part of the math curriculum?
Yes, sir.
Is rewriting numbers in alternative forms a math skill?
Yes, it is. The students are required math skills, rewriting numbers.
Is the square root of 36 an alternative way of expressing the number 6?
It is.
Okay, Ms. Kellogg in this document states that the quizz's question is misaligned. Do you agree?
I disagree.
And can you explain why?
Because if you flip the page, you see where she has my learning goals. And this is not even my objective. I simplify the wording for the students, but it says right here to rewrite powers with rational exponents. So they need to rewrite a number with another square root again. So if you look at the question, she says that I should have had the answer be a 6. And I know the original test question has a 6 in there, but I edited it on purpose to align it. I modified it to align it actually, because the correct answer is the 3 square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, and 3 times 2 is 6. So I did have 6 on there, and I'm asking them to rewrite square root of 36 with a square root. We want to see the square root in the answer, just to make it clear.
Is understanding 6, the number 6, as 3 times the square root of 4, a higher order thinking skill?
Yes,
Does this math skill require rigor on the part of the student performing the task?
yeah, they tell you when they see these. I like it.
Does Ms. Champlain in S5 recognize the rigor of your instruction? Go back to S5.
She does.
Can you identify where?
Where it says move students, that they build on each other to move students towards mastery of the learning target. But on the next bullet point, she also notes while preserving the rigor of the standards. It is difficult.
Sorry, where are you looking for?
S5,
Where on that?
This is under instructional goal bullet
3.
3.
So instructional goal is what you're reading,
Mhm.
not, okay.
Okay. Okay, is building rapport with students a component of consistent classroom management?
It is
And how did you build rapport with your students?
several ways.
Can you identify some?
Like I said, the praising the students, the rewards. But another way with the reports, we do Google Forms to further drive that social emotional learning. This is just one example, but many examples are like candy for the kids, of course, like hypoallergenic candy and fruit, all the healthy stuff. I'm calling the homes. Just always, if you come in my class, I'm always positive too, even when I'm scolding them. And then just the data, the love of learning is how I'm taught that they like being successful. So I always show them their data that they're growing, and that also builds the rapport, the trust.
You speak Spanish?
I do.
Does that help build rapport?
It does, of course.
And how do you see that as helping?
I mean, I can, just the accessibility for the whole population of students that need the supports that are lacking.
T5. You recognize these?
Yes,
Can you explain what these are?
these are memes. I interjected, this was not from a training, to be culturally relevant with the kids, get their attention. Of course, I'm gonna use memes. I told other teachers to try and use memes too.
How did you use these?
Every week I have announcements and I would attach like theme of the week. This is the meme of the week. While I read announcements and just point to it.
Do you recall what themes these particular memes were used for?
To build the students up and to just drive discussion. You can see the second one, the teachers when they add memes to their PowerPoint presentations. When I show this to the students, I'll just randomly tell the kid, which cat are you? How you feel today? Which cat are you? And the kids will always, they love to share when they see these.
So did these help to build connections with your students?
Yes,
Do they help connect students to the math class?
yes, they feel welcome.
T6. Have you seen this before?
Yeah,
And can you tell us what this is?
it's a note from a student.
Could you read the note, please?
Just trying to move things along.
I'm okay with you. We're okay with you.
The top I won't read is just the student made that problem. Maybe she got it from one of my problems, I don't know. On my codes. All right, so thank you for being the best, coolest, and chillest algebra teacher ever. And she meant ever. And she put, before high school, I never really cared for math because I never really had a good teach until you. And right there, she meant teacher. But in reality, I have fun doing some math problems, and I want to thank you for helping me love math even more.
And do you remember what prompted the student to write this letter?
Towards the end of the year, they just, towards the end of the year.
Do you recall if there was anything that you may have done that may have influenced this message?
I just always want the students to know they feel safe. And like I said, my training, what differentiates me is the goal is that love of learning. So when I see this and I see the word love, I'm successful. Because not only do I see a student that wrote this letter to me spontaneously, I see a future teacher, which is what my training is. That's the goal.
G7.
Start writing the numbers everywhere.
Are you familiar with this document?
Yes,
And what is this?
it's another letter from a student.
From a student? Okay. What prompted the student to write this note?
This is when the English teachers sometimes ask the students to write a letter to one of the teachers. It's one of the letters I received.
And do you recall anything that you may have done to influence the student to write this letter?
This specific student had low attendance. And so when she would show up, I made sure she felt safe if she had to report anything, but also successful, that she could share to her friends if not comfortable sharing to me. And yeah, she showed growth that year, not just social, emotionally, academic, holistically, the whole thing.
Great. Do you recall if her attendance did improve?
It did.
I think this would be T8.
No worries.
So you're familiar with this document?
Mhm.
And what is it?
This is a spreadsheet, the Caring Adult spreadsheet, which was outside my classroom.
Do you recall who created this?
This was the administrators, the counselors, I don't know, wasn't teachers, and it was shared with either the freshman academy or the whole school, I don't know.
I know the printing is very small. Apologies on the way it came out there. But do you recall what question was being asked on this document?
Oh, there it is. Yeah, who is your caring adult in the building? Identify one or two people.
Do you have any knowledge of how many times you were named in this document?
I counted it one time. It was around minimum of 8.
And did any other adults get named as often as you did?
I was top 3. top two. Top.
Pardon?
T9.
Tina, thank you. Actually, before I leave T8, one of the other names that did come up almost as much as yours was Mr. Fuller. Do you remember what his job was in the school?
Mr. Fuller is a coach, so he spends a lot of time with the students and their families. I'm a math teacher. Students don't like math in the state.
Okay. Have you seen this before, T9?
Yes.
No. What was the purpose of this email?
This is Natasha. She worked in another school, Kinsella, in the same building. I don't know if you would call her, she's a coworker, I guess. But this is her telling me she's leaving, and we bumped into each other randomly one day. I hadn't seen her in probably 3 years. She knew my room the first year I was at Weaver, and she just in passing transition because we had to share the rooms. And she would just see me talking to students and leaving the room. That's all she saw. And she tells me this is her just praising. You could see, I don't know if you want me to read it or not, for her seeing from a distance the impact on.
I'd like to just pull attention to the second paragraph where she describes you as having a dope relationship with the kids. Can you explain what that meant?
The relationship that I reached them, it's a good relationship. Never change that, right? And I won't.
Thank you. Ten. Who is Kelly Major in this document?
Ms. Major is my co-teacher. She's a special ed. The co-teacher they're certified in special ed to help us reach these marginalized populations. I could go on and on.
Okay. In her letter, she, find where here. She speaks about you having an ability to have students with disabilities included in your planning. Can you tell us how you would do that?
The students with the disabilities?
Yes. How would you plan instruction that would include the students with disabilities?
So many ways. There's color coding, like the quizzes. If you saw the questions, they had red answer, yellow answer. Of course, speaking in Spanish. But even that reaches students that speak non-Spanish. For example, like, okay, anything I say verbally, I also make sure it's written. So if they ask me a question, I point to where it's written. Just so many things like having the students help each other, the student building that culture. Like I said, the seating charts, and I use the data too. I show them their test scores improving, and that also drives them. But for the disabled, the students with disabilities, for example, we had them go up to the board and write too. I had a student had a hard time writing in my class, physically like the number 9. And so he would go up to the poster and And they would help him write the number 9 because he just incorporating them in so many different ways.
When you speak of having a visual, in what ways did you provide visuals in your classroom? Is it just the PowerPoint that we saw earlier?
Oh no, the PowerPoint has also the board has instructions on it, and if the instructions don't change, so the more they come to class, the more they get used to the routine. And then there's above the board, there's posters with directions, like so a student can point out to another student how we transition in my class. All the walls are intentionally covered with like one wall has my data wall where it shows our test scores and the classes are competing. But another wall for the English language learners, especially like the vocabulary wall, which many teachers have, but mine is interactive as well, like many other teachers. But the interactive ones, you'll see a student going up to a math word and they'll flip it to copy it, and that's how they fix their grades. And so all the walls, the back room of the thanks to the coaching, I incorporated number sense routine too. Just so many things.
Great. There was another mention in the letter of intentional groupings. Can you tell us what those were?
The intentional groupings is where like you don't want to outnumber the Spanish speak. Like you have to keep in mind. It was a specific training I had where like some people will put a high level learner and a low level learner together, and that's not what I'm taught. That could intimidate the low level learner and alienate the high level learner. You need a middle ground. So that's an example. When I have the co-teacher, Ms. Major, she's talking about how she helped make seating charts. You won't just see green and red, you'll see yellow in the middle. And one of the requirements I'll tell her is make sure you have 2 yellows, a red and a green. So many things, just same thing for Spanish. If there's a Spanish speaking kid, I'm gonna put them with somebody else who understands Spanish as well. So to not alienate.
Okay. Are intentional groupings an aspect of classroom management?
Yes, there.
Do you have any other skills outside of math that you bring to the classroom?
I do.
Can you tell us what those are?
I left teaching my first 5 years in El Paso to get my master's in statistics, and I've taught at the college level, intro to stats course, Stat 145, and then I got data analyst experience when I moved to Dallas, and I worked for Netherlands Sewell and Associates. They're oil and gas consultants, and I was a data analyst. I'm also a data analyst. Not to mention the Spanish speaking. I've translated for them. It's not just that I speak Spanish. I was trained in the language in Dallas and have experience using Spanish professionally as well.
Would you use your data analysis skills when you were looking at the interim data from the district?
I love to, like my favorite part.
Let's look at some data. Are you familiar with these charts?
I am.
Can you explain them?
They're labeled my data trackers. This is one of the walls, how I have it covered. And you can see why I like the data, because this is 2 separate years at Weaver. And so I would not only separate the data here by class, but also by comparing one year to another. And what I was saying is you can see why I enjoy the data, because in the pink Post-its, you can see the growth that I like to point out to the students.
So these charts do indicate growth in your class.
They do.
Can you tell us how much growth?
So that top one was before the pandemic hit. That was 2019. And I had only been there a quarter or two, like half the year. And we went from 15% to 28% average.
And was the growth in the bottom chart as well?
That was my last year, this 21-22 school year as it's labeled. And that one also showed growth.
How much growth did that one show?
I thought it was substantial. When I first got here, they gave me a goal of 4% growth. So you can see I did exceed my first year goal. And another since then, but for example, 15 to 28, that's almost 15% growth. 22 to 40%, that's almost 20%. They almost doubled.
Okay, so the first one you said was half a year. How much time did the second chart show?
That's the full year. That was the 4 quarters. I just don't have that last one. It's not there, IA4, because this is for the students to see, right? And so this IA4 is given on the last day of school. And IA4 is just, I know what happened. So I had that data too.
Okay. When you first started working for Hartford Public Schools, which would have been about 3 years ago, did you start at the beginning of the school year?
My first year, no.
What was it like to start mid-year?
It's challenging is what they say, and it was. But when teachers say the hardest way to start is in the middle of the school year. And so it started in October.
And what grade did you start working with first?
The 9th grade.
And have you remained with 9th graders all 3 years?
Yes, 9th building.
Okay. Were you provided a mentor?
No. If I was, we didn't meet.
Were you provided anybody that
No.
give you orientation in the building? Okay.
Long gone. If there was one.
Did you complete the first school year at Weaver?
Yeah, I did. Well, the pandemic hit. You can see the blue. Did you see the blue that says pre-pandemic? So I told the students last year, I was telling them, I was like, look, you guys are scoring higher than the kids when the pandemic wasn't even a problem. You guys are doing better than them. You should be proud of yourself.
So what happened at the end of the school year when the pandemic hit?
That's why IA3 and IA4 are blank on that top data tracker.
Mhm.
The pandemic hit. I wasn't.
And so how did you teach those last 2 quarters?
It was online. There's no more interim assessments, no testing to the end of that year.
Did you receive support in the transition to virtual learning?
Depends what you mean by support. Minimal. Well, we received support, yes. I apologize. We did receive support.
Can you identify what specific support or who supported you?
The support was the protracts, not protracts, the links is, we got the linked cycles was one of the things that was given to us teachers because of the pandemic. Like I'm trying to think of, you mean pandemic supports?
Right, so the link cycles was
The
one.
link cycle is the main thing I can think of that changed.
Did anybody else provide support?
Like the coaching, the coaching I got, this coaching cycle, the same
Did you
usual.
receive
supports.
coaching cycles during the virtual learning
During
time at the end
virtual,
of 2020?
no. Mhm.
So mostly it was link string.
Mhm.
And did you find that support helpful?
The link string, to use their words, I didn't feel it was aligned to what I was going through. And what teachers went through that year.
Did you find the link string support adequate?
No.
T12? Is this a Link Spring cycle that you completed?
It is?
And was this lesson geared to virtual teaching and learning?
No,
Did this lesson provide you with any feedback on your teaching?
no,
Was this lesson format similar to other Link Spring lessons?
this is what they look like.
Did other Link Spring lessons provide feedback?
No,
Were you given any training in your teacher preparation for virtual teaching?
training?
When you were getting prepared to become a teacher, did you have any previous
No,
experience
no,
or training in virtual teaching? Did the district provide any training specific to full virtual teaching during the spring of 2020, when the district was fully virtual?
Did the district provide you?
Did the district provide any training specific to full virtual teaching during the spring of 2020, when you were teaching fully virtually?
Mhm.
Okay, your second year of teaching was school year 20 to 21, correct?
The first full?
Your
Yes.
Your second year of
The
teaching.
second year was the first full, yes,
Okay, did you teach that entire year?
I did.
And did the 2020 to 2021 school year continue in the full virtual mode?
It went hybrid, but yes, we had students the whole year fully virtual.
All students, or
So there was a population, they had the choice.
so some students remained fully virtual,
Yeah.
And- others were hybrid?
Some were hybrid where they could.
Yeah, can you explain how the hybrid model worked?
We had students in person as well. So we had students virtually. So there was always a group of students we had to keep in mind that are not even in the building. But then they allowed students to come in, of course, to access the learning. And so we also had students in person that we had to make sure their behaviors and their learning was also included.
Did that hybrid model continue all year?
Yes,
Were you required to teach online and in person at the same time?
yeah.
Take a 2-minute break to use the restroom. Is that okay? Sure. All right, we're gonna take a 2-minute break. Oh. Anyone else who needs the restroom, feel free to go or call the break. You sure?
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, we did. I thought my brother was jail.
Oh,
I know.
I don't know. I don't like to get
And
it.
I don't know if those part of the school she had. You just do it all. I know.
That's for sure.
Yeah. We had that first.
So- But I still have. Unfortunately, we definitely have some vacancies in our office, so I still.
Yeah, there might be duplication for the
Some
front
of
and
them
back.
things.
Thanks.
So still need some support. Yeah.
This,
Work.
Right, I think it-
Plenty of work to do. And,
Full time.
and even so. Especially when I work, so it's like. Situations like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, no. I just. Fortunately, but. Some experience. Yes, yes.
We're ready? Okay. Ms. Gal, you may continue.
Great, thank you. Okay. Go to T13. Okay, you familiar with this document?
I am, yes, I am.
And can you tell us what it is?
This is the second component of medicine, the middle part, where they do bookwork practice, you know. And these directions are actually from my Google Classroom that are posted online, but also, again, as I'm stating directions, it's posted for the students in class to see as well.
So this is a practice that both online and in-person students receive.
Yes,
Okay, were you given any training in your teacher preparation for this kind of simultaneous teaching, like in-person and virtual at the same time?
not much.
Did the district provide any training that specifically addressed simultaneous teaching?
No, nothing impactful.
Were you ever provided models or demonstrations of simultaneous teaching?
Sometimes we get snippets of other teachers, what they're doing, so I've seen that on other teachers' Google Classroom.
Did the district provide you with a math curriculum?
Yes,
And was that curriculum designed for in-person or virtual teaching?
for in-person, they made changes. But, when online learning happened.
Did the district, so the district did provide adaptations of the math curriculum?
They took out the quadratics, those I think.
That was an adaptation
Yes.
for virtual learning?
Mhm.
And did the district provide examples, models, or demonstrations of how you could adapt the math curriculum to virtual or simultaneous teaching models?
No,
Did the district provide you with teaching tools?
yes,
Can you identify some of those?
like Cami, I would use to edit PDFs that was provided by the district, like an editing tool for PDFs. Google Classrooms provided, the link springs provided. And then we would meet with other teachers that's provided by the district.
Were you provided with textbooks?
Physical textbooks, that's funny you asked, because we were lacking textbooks, physical textbooks. So I was given textbooks. Was I given enough? Not at first.
So you had textbooks, but not enough for every student?
No, not. It was a problem.
Were you provided with calculators?
I received calculators that are district property. I just don't know if it counts. What was the question?
Were you provided with calculators
By who?
by the district?
That's where I'm not so sure the district knows how I got those calculators. Was I provided, I got district calculators, yes.
Okay.
I'm a co.
From a coworker, okay. Did the district provide calculators for standardized testing?
Depends which kinds, right? Because there's graphing calculators and then there's scientific calculators. So the requirement is the scientific calculators. We have like on online tools, they have that. The district provides that. But the graphing calculators, which we use in my classroom, those were not consistently given to the students during testing.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. The district provided the scientific calculators online, an online calculator for testing.
Yeah, the graphing calculator, it's like an equation and a graph. And but that's like the PSAT test comes with that built in. And then the district tells me a website, yes, we use, I have it on my phone, the app. But yes, we should just provide the scientific.
Online.
Online, I'm talking.
So they didn't provide it in the way your students would use it in class.
Yes, because in
The
my
actual
class,
calculator.
in my class was the graphing calculator that you guys might remember from high school, like TI-84s. I'm talking about those. I use in my class. I received from coworker. Did the district provide those graphing calculators for the students? That's what I'm saying, it's inconsistent, graphing calculators.
And would those graphing calculators be allowed by PSAT and?
Yeah, they're an advantage.
Were you provided a laptop?
I was provided a laptop.
Were all of your students provided with a laptop?
They were, took a while, but yes, they did. They did a good job with that.
Were there other tools needed that were not provided?
Yeah, it was, like I said, the calculators, I don't know if I did not receive it from the department I'm supposed to receive it. But also there was more with the calculators to project it onto my screen. I had asked for help projecting the calculators so the students could see on the screen. I had to improvise and use a poster on my wall to point to the buttons, but they did not provide that for me.
Was that something that other math teachers had?
I did see, towards, at one point in the year, another teacher and the coach, both were using it in their classroom.
Okay, there was earlier testimony that you did not complete the math curriculum. Are you aware of any of your colleagues that did not complete the math curriculum that year?
Many math teachers from the district, reported being behind and asking their other teachers what they were going to do with the quadratic section. Many saying they weren't going to get to it. So I was aware of many were behind.
Many were behind, and from what you heard, quadratics was the area that everybody was struggling with getting in.
Yeah, because it's at the end. The book covers it different than you expected it to.
Okay, let's go to S16. Were you required to teach seminar?
I was required to teach them.
And is seminar a course requiring a math certification?
No.
Do all teachers teach seminar?
Yes.
What is the class about?
It's like a study hall, but we amp it up where we're trying to give them life skills, the social emotional component too, study skills, etiquette even, just little things that we all want to incorporate and teach the kids. So it does cover gaps, trying to address gaps in the student, yeah. Trying to get them to college. We talk about college a lot on it, and careers. It's fun.
Did you receive any training in teaching seminar?
For seminar, training, like an hour.
Did you request support for this class?
We got the calendar right here, from Ms. Rosario. They put a calendar to tell us, that's where I was struggling. I didn't know where to start in the middle of the year. And so once I got this calendar and the curriculum clearly labeled more so, then I was able to deliver the curriculum to the students.
Okay, did you receive, so you requested support for this class?
I did, I was
Did
behind.
you you receive the support that you requested?
I received this calendar.
And what impact did that support have?
It helped me. I was able, like I said, as I said, I was able to get in line with my coworkers and provide it was successful.
In previous testimony, Ms. Webley said that you were not delivering the seminar curriculum. Was that before the request for support?
Yes,
Did Ms. Webley provide the needed support?
she did.
And after the support was received, were you able to catch up on delivering the seminar curriculum in the school year 2021?
We were able to, yes.
And were you able to then deliver the seminar the following year in school year 21 to 22?
I was again.
And were you successful in that year with seminar?
In seminar, more successful. Time runs out. So yeah, I was successful.
T14? Are you familiar with this document?
I am.
And can you tell us what this is?
These are PSAT scores from the College Board.
And are these all the ninth grade scores?
These are the Freshman Academy scores.
Are your students listed on this document?
They are listed.
You know about how many of your students are on there?
They're the ones with the dots. How many students did I have on here? I guess around half.
What was the average PSAT score for your students in the spring of 2021? Do you recall?
The average PSAT score up here is at the top. There were 82 test takers. Half were probably mine, the 40. And then the total score was 660. Oh, for the math, the average was 323 for the school. That's towards the top.
That's for the school?
Mhm.
Do you know how that compares with your students' average?
Well, generally, my population is non-honors track. Usually, my population of I'm trained algebra. You have honors track and non-honors track. So I target the non-honors track kids, and they're usually below average. They're average. On this one is when they were above average. If you separate out my student scores.
So did you do that data analysis and pull out your students?
I ran my own analysis on this data. This data is what's provided for me. And Friday night, I remember I wanted to see, and I found that my average was higher than the school average. And there's many other things this can tell you.
Sheet 15. So is this your data analysis of those PSAT scores?
This is my quick Excel data analysis.
Okay, can you walk us through your analysis? First of all, how do we see your scores on here? How are they represented or identified?
So there's Team Howard, the Freshman Academy, drive competitiveness, to incentivize the kids. It separates them into Team Howard and Team Morgan. So my team is Team Howard. And you can also see we have the semester, we have the beginning of the school year and the end of the school year on here.
And what was your Team Howard average?
Team Howard's in yellow, the number 26. At the beginning of the school year, you could see we were below average, 322, when the whole school was 332.
Mhm.
And then towards the middle, if you see the yellow, Team Howard in the spring, the average was 323, and my student's average was 329, which is now above average.
Perfect. All right. Moving on to the 2021 to 2022 school year, did that continue in the hybrid model? The last year?
In the hybrid model, no students were given the virtual option.
Did students return to school then in person in August of 21 in a manner consistent with previous years?
It was a different year.
How are they different?
They were returning. Some students had not even seen other kids for like a year. I mean, you see it on the news, right? What the students have gone through. So at the beginning of last year, they were returning from online learning. Many tell you they hadn't been in school for a year.
And were you still teaching the freshman academy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Can you just explain to us what the freshman academy is?
Well, there's the teams right there. So that's part of it. You could see Team Howard and Team Morgan. Those are the historically black colleges. So it's one of its goals is to help get them towards college and being successful in college. But it also helps the teachers where we work in teams, right? I'll have a English teacher. All our students are basically grouped accordingly, where they all will have the same math teacher, English, history, and science teacher.
Was the freshman academy in existence the first year you taught at Weaver?
My first year, no, it was not set up yet.
When did it start?
The second year with the online learning, when it became official, the 2021 school.
And do you have any knowledge as to why it was started then? Purpose of it then?
To further support our students. I'm a fan.
Okay.
16.
Thank you. Okay. Can you tell us what this document is?
So this is further analysis of mine, where I took college board data, the PSAT scores across the nation this year.
And were you teaching at Weaver during the test periods that are on this sheet?
Yes, this spans 2 school years. At the top, it says the fall 20, that's where the kids came back. In the middle, spring 21 is the end of that school year. And then another teacher recommended that to do analysis, you do fall to fall. So I also included the beginning of this last year.
And was there improvement over the course of these 3 test administrations?
You can see in the circles and in the green, that's the school. We did show growth with the up arrows. I'm proud of this. The number of test takers grew. It is part of my training, how to attract students to the love of learning, right? And so you can see the circles. The fall of 20, the beginning of the online learning, we started with 60 kids. We didn't lose testers that year, contrary to the nation trend. We actually gained learners during online learning at Weaver High School. The district did not. And if you look from the beginning of the next school year, we still continue to grow. So we almost tripled the numbers there from the fall 20 to the fall 21. And that's just the number of test takers.
So can you walk us through how this shows the growth in Weaver?
Yeah, so so if you look at the circles, that's where Weaver showed growth. But if you also look at the arrows, you can see that the nation outside of the green, when you look outside of Weaver, you can see that the nation might have up arrows and down arrows. But if you just look at green, we got nothing but up arrows, including the score. There is evidence of learning. We did not have a loss in learning.
So what cohort of students do the scores represent?
These were the freshman academy.
And so these would be the students that you were teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So do these scores reflect improved scores of 9th grade students during the time period in which you taught at the freshman academy at Weaver?
It doesn't, as I said, if you look at the nation though, they did not have the same results. They went drastically. They actually depressed our nation. I want people to hear this. that we depressed that school year, our kids, a 25 scale factor. If you divide those two rectangles, we lost over 500,000 kids from online learning to in-person learning. Not at Weaver though.
You're talking national.
Nationally, if you look at the yellow and the orange, it's up arrows and down arrows. They only have up arrows.
Getting back to Weaver now, were you the only math teacher in the freshman academy?
There was another math teacher,
You were one of two.
and that's, I have my own data, which shows, again, the analysis on the previous page. This doesn't include by teacher, but the by teacher also shows.
T17. Did you receive coaching from the district?
I did.
And who coached you in this document?
This is my first year coaching before the online disruption, and this is Heidi Bachman.
And is Heidi a colleague?
She is.
Are you familiar with this document?
This is the end of a coaching cycle, yes.
How much coaching did you receive in 2019 to 2020? That this covers.
How much coaching?
Mhm.
Right here, it says 5 weeks is the length of the coaching cycle.
And did you incorporate the next steps that are listed in this document into your teaching?
Yes, if you look on the back of the first page, she says continue to develop, continue. You can see that I did incorporate. You can see her notes. Thank you for participating. It was nice to work with you, but yeah, it was successful. Continue to develop the anchor charts. Continue to think about incorporating student voice. And I did.
T17. No, I'm sorry, T18. T18.
Carol, can I ask you a question? I don't know if I have the right document. T17 looks like it's got several coaching cycles.
Yeah.
Say again?
T17
That's it.
looks like it has both Heidi's and other coaching cycles. Did you
Yes,
need to do
we're gonna,
that?
Come back to it.
we're gonna come back to it.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
that it's
there's a
clear.
lot in
It's just the first page that you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, so far I was only asking about Heidi's,
Okay.
which was that first page. Yes, thank you for that clarification. So you just mentioned that one of the next steps was to provide anchor charts in your classroom. Okay, so looking at T18, what are these?
These are virtual, just physical anchor charts. If you look at T18, the first one was a virtual one. So I started making anchor charts and showing them on the screen. It is a lot, but the students with routine would actually memorize these steps. And if you look on the second page, that was, this was when I worked with my coach to include number sense routines. And we were successful in having student feedback. But you can see it's got
So
lots
you
of.
incorporated the anchor charts into your classroom.
I did.
And how often did you meet with the coach?
We should go for weekly.
So once a week?
This is the goal. It happened.
Okay, so the goal was to meet once a week. Was the coaching helpful?
Yes. I always, yes.
Did you need more or different coaching that year?
That year, which year? The first year?
This is when Heidi was coaching you in 2020.
Oh, with Heidi was great.
Okay, so now going back to T17, you'll turn to the coaching from the year 2021 on page 3. There. Yeah, that page right there. Are you familiar with this document?
Yes,
And how much coaching did you receive in this school year or in this cycle?
this was the whole the school year. You can see the dates are labeled. So from April 5th to April 30th is this specific one. There's some in May.
Okay, so, how often did you meet with the coach?
It looks like looks like a weekly, right? It looks like
Weekly?
about twice a week sometimes.
Hey, did you incorporate new learning from this coaching into your teaching?
I did. She also asked for well, not anchor chart. She asked for the number sense routine. So I did incorporate the number sense routine.
Okay, did you also incorporate exit tickets into your teaching from this coaching cycle?
Yes.
Was this coaching helpful?
The coaching did help provide strategies to reach further kids.
Did you need any more or different coaching?
More or different. Of course, for online, we always could use more. I was asking for, like any other teacher, more tools, more strategies.
Okay, and if you flip, you'll see another coaching cycle from 2022. Yep. Who is this coach?
Rosalind Champlin.
And how much coaching did you receive in this cycle?
You can see from October 29th to November 30th. Same, it looks around weekly. This one went into spring as well.
Okay, can you identify about how many times you were
1,
meeting?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm gonna say 10.
Okay,
I like to estimate.
okay, and let's take a look at this document. T8, no, T19. Do you recognize this document?
This is I do recognize it.
Okay, what is this showing us?
This was a Jamboard, which is a shared online, it's a virtual lesson essentially.
And was the lesson here of an I do, you do taken from your coaching cycle?
Yes, it was also pointed to from the coach.
And was this coaching cycle helpful?
Yes.
In that year, did you need any more or different coaching?
That's a tricky question. I had problems with coaches where I asked for more support, so I did ask for help with the coaching.
Was this the only coaching you received?
For those years, yes.
Okay, coaches T20. Um, actually,
Does it make sense, Carol, if we're duplicating, for me to point you to my exhibits rather than us having a second one twice? I mean, I will leave that up to you, whatever's easier for you,
well,
but
it might just be easy because they're all in a row here.
that's.
But I know, I had asked
That's why I'm
last time
offering
whether
it.
we should share
Yeah.
some of these, and we didn't at that point.
It is whatever works
Yeah.
best. for
But actually,
you.
I'm gonna just back up a minute before we get to T20, and I wanna look at S17.
Pause for just 1 quick minute.
Yes.
Can we take a 5-minute or 2-minute break real quick? Thank you.
Thanks.
No.
Listen, not everything I actually do is nice.
No. Well, true, but most of it.
I'm throwing a slow pitch at you today. Then I'll get the copy.
Thank you. No, body of the copy?
Don't trust me.
No, just to chat with you, a couple other things.
Yeah, there is.
You maximize.
Yeah.
You're here.
Efficiency.
Yes.
I don't know, we still have another witness
Oh, okay.
across, she has to cross.
Oh,
Macias.
so fine.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like, no more bathroom breaks. No more bathroom breaks. Yeah, it's Friday, come on, no
Right?
more bathroom breaks.
This is the day.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Fridays are gorgeous Fridays.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
A cool morning.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, it was. That looks like it's gonna fall into just me.
The light?
No,
the ceiling?
Yeah,
No, I think they're all, well,
when you see it from over here, it looks like.
yeah. We'll see if I get one time.
I'm here with this. Yeah.
All right.
No, really.
Sure.
Yeah, take it in that. This way, this way. No more bathroom breaks. So yeah, better, no more water. No more water in the city. Yeah. No more water. We're going now forever with this.
The best day ever. finish doing more work.
Everyone's ready? Oh, wait.
Just saying, she should be back in a second.
I don't care.
Probably.
Give it another minute.
Mhm.
You're not, your mom's got you working.
Well, there's that.
Happy birthday.
No, the birthday's not for a couple of weeks.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll help from
Yeah.
that, so she's ready.
Gotcha.
There's no snow on our record.
Hopefully she doesn't see it on YouTube.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yep, that's on record. Sorry. I know, not right.
I think we can probably go.
You wanna go ahead?
We're okay to
Right.
continue?
Let's
Okay.
go.
So actually looking at S17, is this an email exchange between you and Principal Webley?
It is.
In previous testimony, Principal Webley stated that your SLOs were incomplete. If you turn to December 2nd in this email exchange, do you acknowledge that you do not have 2 SLOs?
December 2nd.
Yeah, I think it goes from the back and moving, in the dates moving.
Yes, right here, I'm seeing a sentence where it says, I did forget to follow up with you when you requested the slow 2, but I did have it completed that Thursday as requested.
Okay. So on February 3rd, you flip a page, do you request to have your SLOs resubmitted?
I did. You could see, good morning, Ms. Webley, could I resubmit my slows this week?
Okay. Are you able to revise SLOs after they've initially been entered into my learning plan?
We can.
Do you have access to do that?
I have to wait for the administrator to approve.
Okay, so once the administrator approves access, then you can go in and revise.
Then I can go in and edit.
Okay, so is it fair to say that the administrator must unlock the system for you in order to revise? Did you request to submit your SLOs on February 3rd because they were locked at that time?
I'm gonna object and continue, and I hate to do this, but it's continuing, she's actually testifying, she's asking not direct questions, she's asking cross-examination questions and leading questions, and I
Sure.
don't wanna.
No, so I think just try to not ask leading questions and just more direct questions if you can.
Okay, sure. On February 3rd, what were you asking in that email?
I'm asking Ms. Webley if I could resubmit my slows.
And why did you have to ask permission to resubmit your slows?
I can't, once I turn it in, I can't edit it until I'm allowed to.
Okay, on February 8th, to the next part of the chain,
On the second page.
yes. What were you indicating on February 8th?
So let me know if I left out anything you would need, and sorry for the wait.
And were you able to resubmit your SLOs?
Yes, on the first page, was I able to resubmit my SLOs? I tried to make on the first page the changes recommended, but was unable to.
Okay, and then what was the last line of that email?
The last line says, I know you're busy, so no worries if you think they are fine as is.
And did you receive a response to that email?
There was no response after that.
And so what did you take as the meaning of that no response?
I took it as my slows were okay. first time I heard they were missing was at the hearing.
Thank you. All right, now we'll go to T20. And what is this document?
T20, this is informal observation.
And what was the date of this informal observation? I believe you have to find it on the last page.
Last page is dated at the top, October 21st, 2021.
Okay. Did you need to prepare anything in advance of this observation?
Yes, well, the informal observation is not, there's no meeting, we don't submit a lesson.
Okay, was this an announced or an unannounced observation?
This one was probably announced that they're gonna come in, but not like specific day or period. They give us, let's say we'll be in your classes.
What was your score?
Depends what you mean by score, because it says 10.
Right.
Labeled here.
Yeah, and how many areas were scored?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, and so what was your observational rating for this observation?
Yeah, because it's not on here, but if you do the math, 10 divided by 4 is 2.5.
And is that in the range for an effective score?
That 2.5 is labeled as effective on here.
Okay. Let's go to this observation. T21. And did you need to prepare anything in advance of this observation?
This is a formal observation, so we do prepare the lesson for this.
And other than preparing a lesson, is there anything else different from between the formal and the informal?
We also meet with the evaluator if we have any questions or what they can expect. There's conversations.
And was this an announced or an unannounced observation?
This one is announced. They do work with us on the,
And did you receive an effective score in this observation?
yes, if you do the math, 2.89. Is that on all of them? Oh, okay. Then that's effective.
Okay. And we'll do one more observation. Oh, what was the date of this observation, formal observation number 1?
If you go to the last page, you told me on the back, it says January 27th, 2022.
This would be T. Thank you. And what was the date of this observation?
2022, May 19th, 2022.
Did you need to prepare anything in advance of this observation?
This one also, we got to prepare and we got to meet. It's also labeled the days we met.
Okay, and was this announced or unannounced?
This one is announced, they work with us.
And was your score for this observation an effective score?
This is also effective.
Were you provided feedback at your mid-year conference?
Yes,
Do you recall what that feedback was?
wasn't nothing alarming or concerning to me.
Were you provided any modifications or support from the evaluation process?
Once we met, we followed through, nothing additional.
Did you receive any indication that your contract may not be renewed?
I was never told when. Observation, formal, informal. Evaluations. Even.
Okay, if we could turn to S29. So what is the date of these emails?
At the top, I see March 4th, 2022.
Okay, and what occurred on the day that these emails were sent?
Teacher will not be non-renewed. Oh, this is talking about when I was told I was non-renewed.
And how were you informed of that?
It was over a week. This is on Friday though, March 4th. At the end of the week, I received a phone call during class, during seminar. At the end of seminar, I received a phone call from Janet Serrano. And she lets me know that I was told incorrectly from the principal to either resign or be terminated. I was given an option. And she clarifies to me that I must either choose to resign at the end of the year or to be terminated that day. So I chose, if they're gonna fire a teacher, I said, go ahead, I choose termination. And so she told me that day. So that's how I was told.
And what phone was that call made through?
In my class call.
Were there, were there students in your classroom when you answered the phone?
Yeah, I had kids looking at me.
How did you react to the message?
We were used to it, and I know how to take care of the kids, and they were not concerned at all. My language.
Or how did you react to Ms. Serrano's call and the message she was giving you?
Oh, what was my reaction? My reaction once the call was over, I was just alarmed, right? And I thought it was my last day, so I went and talked to my leadership, actually. A couple teachers, and let them know the incident.
Mr. Meyer states in these emails that you hung up on Ms. Serrano. Is that true?
Well, because I'm bilingual, hung up means a lot of things. So I told him I hung up because I hung up the phone. But I let Ms. Serrano know that I was pressed for time. I actually had a meeting. I was sandwiched. I had a meeting with Mr. Meyer. And so I let her know during the conversation that I have a meeting soon. And would you like for us to reschedule the call? And she said it's up to me. So I said, okay, let's keep talking. But when I hung up, I ended the call. I didn't, like, it wasn't interrupted. She got her say, I got my say. She knew where I was going.
How would you describe your emotional state as you were hearing the news?
Just rushed. I would say rushed. Like, what do you do? It's your last day at work. That's what I was thinking. Like, people you care about.
So there's another, in this document, Mr. Fuller uses the word manic.
On the front page.
Yes. Is that an accurate description of how you were feeling?
The word manic to me is a charged word. And you can describe me manic at any point. I'm bilingual within my culture. So what he would call manic that day, I would just say pressed for time.
T23. Have you seen this document before?
I have seen this letter.
And can you describe what it is?
This is where I'm told of my absences as a problem. No, I was trying my best.
How many days were you absent?
If you count the dates here, 1, 2, 3, I think it's 9.
Do you recall the reasons for those absences?
I had health problems. Legit health problems.
And are you aware of how many sick days are allowed per your contract?
I had to ask many people, and I had to look around, I was getting many answers. I found the answer was 20.
Did you exceed 20 days?
I had not exceeded 20 days yet.
Did your principal explain why she deemed your absences excessive if you had not exceeded the contractual 20 days?
Can you repeat the question?
Did you get it, or did the principal explain why she determined that you had excessive absenteeism?
No,
Did this letter have any impact on your attendance after the December 10th date of the letter?
definitely added to the stress.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
You might feel better if you could give me like 10 minutes just to collect my thoughts. You will
That's
probably have
fine.
a much more succinct
Okay, that's fine.
presentation.
Sneak out for a few minutes.
Probably want to cost this while it's available. I'm going to make you guys come as well. I'm running out of hands.
Yeah. Next time. Yeah, I promise.
She's in the
Nice to meet you.
And we may have met. If I introduce myself.
Looks like there's a huddle room, 428. You need to, I mean.
So don't forget where.
I just as soon be ready to pick up as soon as everybody's back in the room.
The Zoom, yeah, it's live, don't forget a hot mic.
Is anybody on?
No, I
Yeah.
see one watch, but I think that's me.
I didn't share it this time.
Oh, no, okay, so,
Yeah.
but the link is always there.
Yeah.
Yes, right. I think depends on how much cross-examination she does. Because Corey's testimony would be probably about it. Given, like, having had never done this before, I have no idea how long this was going to take. You were on for that. 2 hours.
Started losing.
A lot of points to make.
It's hard to do. Sequential ordering, practice ahead of time.
Yep, you could say, I don't know, but I don't.
Go back out. and do that.
So this thing is a jump ones.
No, the S for the superintendents and the T of the teachers. Yeah, the T of the teacher. Documents.
Oh, that's probably why they.
That's
take
why
a
you
second.
identify. Teachers.
What?
I don't know what.
Yeah, exactly.
I already thought about that, so I'm like, well, geez, I had to remember to do that, so. And roll.
That's what they do. Rest.
Yeah. bring back more to that.
Yeah.
Find them, referencing.
Are not long, because we're just moving to one portion.
If they want to go back. to culture, yeah. But that's good.
Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna do kind of, we have theirs,
Just totally okay.
but then, yeah, that's a mess. It's extra. It's impressive, how much it is, just documentation.
Yep. Lunchtime. You don't finish it, you have to schedule it. Seven o'clock. So can be done by 4.
Yeah, that's my question.
4:30. 85.
Just be glad it's that one instead of 4. Just also your idea.
I didn't have it. Just didn't have it. What is your name?
Debbie,
Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
yes. Just asking my daughter if the kids could come over tomorrow. She's, all capped, yes.
Happy to do
I
that.
usually take them on Saturdays.
That's what I was about to ask, for the night too?
What's that?
For the night too, I was gonna say.
Sometimes, yeah, the nights are rough. They're only, he's 4 and she's gonna be 6.
Cute age.
Nights, I don't do too much.
I
Every
love
couple
that
months
age.
we do.
I have 3 grandnieces around that age. It's cute if they go home before it's bedtime.
Yeah,
Bedtime is
yeah,
always
yeah, they'll come over around 9, 10. I'll bring them home around 4. That's it.
I have two nieces that age too. We're not at the point for a full day babysitting. Too many nerves for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty, I miss, they could stay all weekend.
Yeah, right, if you had your way.
We've been busy. My son-in-law's a math teacher in high school. He says he's a babysitter. Actually, this year he's gonna be a vice principal. He's going in at the other high school.
Both important roles,
What's that?
both important roles.
Pardon?
It was 7 weeks.
I have a second witness, yes. Be much shorter.
What I anticipate.
Yeah. 7 pages of questions, I have 1.
It's
What's that?
good. Very thorough, but that's impressive and good. I have to say.
Coming from a lawyer, I take that to heart. Thank you, Lord.
Yes, ma'am.
I watch. You know, luckily, I've been in a few arbitrations before I had to do this. Kind of got a feel for it. But, yeah. This is not my area of expertise by a long shot.
Nothing but a test.
Well, good, that's good to hear. If anybody has been impressed, it needs to be you.
I let you know loud and clear how.
Yes. Okay.
So they were cross. Let's go with the second one. Yeah. Cross the second, this total.
It's okay. It's underneath.
No. Do you want me to have to
Maybe we have to
go back?
Yeah, let's go back.
Go back under.
And then just give it to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, guys. I'm ready.
I am, thank you.
All right, it's all yours.
All right, Mr. Macias. First of all, you testified about quizzes in a program that you use. That was the same program that Ms. Kellogg's testified that she told you that you shouldn't be using. Isn't that correct?
It is, and I stopped.
And students log into quizzes when they use it, correct?
They don't log in.
They don't log in, they don't put the names in it anyway?
It asks them for a name.
Okay. And then they complete their work in the program?
Yes, it's like, yeah, that's how they submit their answers.
And then you can review those answers?
It's data.
And do you grade those answers?
I mean,
And isn't it true that quizzes does not have a data sharing agreement with the Hartford Board of Education?
data sharing.
So any, by state law, any online program that you use has to have a data sharing agreement with the Board of Ed, isn't that correct?
I would assume so. I don't know.
And did you check to see if quizzes had such an agreement before you used it?
I mean, there's no identifying information on there for the students from what I've seen. But no, I did not. I was not told. I was unaware.
All right, could I turn you, Carol, do you have the documents or do I need to have the official one sent that way? Could you turn to Superintendent 5, please? Now, when Ms. Gale asked you about this document before, you indicated that Roz Champlain, who was your coach, found that you appropriately sequenced all learning activities at the beginning, middle, and end, correct?
You were pointing to these bullet points, yes.
And those bullet prints are entitled instructional goals, correct?
Yes, not her words.
And this is the first page where it says what teacher actions will be introduced to students to observe the desired student action. You see that?
Mhm.
And then the goals that she and you, or at least she was setting, was that teacher would appropriately sequence all learning activities, correct?
Yep.
And a goal she was setting was teacher makes intentional decisions about instructional materials to support student learning while preserving the rigor of the standards and maintaining pace with the district curriculum. Do you see that?
That was the goal.
So those were goals. Those weren't her observations of you. They were goals that were being set, correct?
I would say the goals were met.
It's your opinion the goals were met at the end of this coaching cycle? Or are you saying the goals were met before the coaching cycle started?
I never received the end of coaching cycle report.
Well, if you turn to the last page of S5, do you see that there are coach reflections there?
Yes, she left reflections.
And you also left with reflections, correct?
I also typed in.
Okay, so you did get a conclusion or a summary from the coaching cycle because you had her reflections, you had your own reflections, correct?
Reflection is different from what I received from Heidi, which was the end of coaching cycle.
Okay.
What was the-
You talked about seating charts and you gave us an example. I'm sorry, I don't know which exhibit number it was. Let's see if I can find it. Exhibit T2, I believe. Did I hear you correct that sometimes you let students do the seating chart?
They will, it's hidden, like I'll tell them but yes, students can help.
So they're helping assign who sits where?
Yeah, but again, they're identifying information of test scores will be hidden. They don't know. But yes, students have asked.
All right, so you said that you always make sure you see 2 yellows with a red and a green. Did I hear you correct?
Always is, ideally, and
And you considered yellow to be your middle level students?
Mhm.
And red were your students who were maybe having difficulty?
certainly
And green were the students who were not struggling?
excel. Who can help.
Okay. And you shared that information, you said, with your co-teacher, your special ed co-teacher, correct?
I'll tell them this person needs help, this person provides help, this person is neutral.
And were the students also aware of the color coding?
Yes. Whether it's test data, they did not know.
But they did know yellow, red, or green.
I did not disclose what specific metric I was measuring.
All right, during the 2021, the 21-22 school year, you didn't give that IA number 3, did you, the interim assessment 3?
Which one?
21-22, so last school year, you didn't give the interim assessment number 3, did you?
I gave interim assessment too.
Okay. All right, you talked about virtual teaching in 1920. All teachers in Hartford are teaching virtually, correct?
In the pandemic year,
Yes.
towards the end of the year,
Yes.
we were all virtual.
So it wasn't something unique to you. You just have to say yes or no. You're gonna drive
Yes,
this poor woman crazy.
No, you're right.
I was about to say
I
something.
meant to apologize about that.
I let it go a couple times.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and then 2021, you would agree that all teachers at Weaver were teaching in that hybrid model where sometimes students were in person, sometimes you have students online.
Yes. we
Again,
all-
that wasn't unique to you.
Mm, Depending on the grade level, our workloads are different.
Okay. And you had testified that you have upward of 30 students in some of your classes. Did I hear you correct?
I've had the roster have reflect 30.
And that was for the 21-22 school year?
I submitted my roster. I have 30.
All right, could you label this? I don't honestly know what I'm.
You're
up to.
at 42.
Thank you. and while we're handing that out, you don't need this, it's in front of you. You said that you did have a special ed teacher who was a co-teacher for the 21-22 school year, am I correct?
Much less in my classroom, but she was in there not as much as I would have liked.
And was that with the TTA students or the Algebra 1 students?
We only had her for, it would change. She, one part of the year, she had me for just algebra, then we switched the schedules on them. But I think she, yes, we prioritized algebra.
All right, so I've put in front of you, we'll label this Superintendent 42, which is a summary of enrollment at Weaver for the 21-22 school year. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
And you see where it says
Yes.
A. Macias?
Do I see A. Macias?
Yes.
I do.
And that's you. And there are other teachers here as well. Are they all math teachers?
This is the math department.
So your class sizes overall were about the same as the other teachers' class sizes, weren't they?
I see different.
If I add up, for example, Ms. McCracken, she had a total of 130 students that year, am I correct?
Yeah, what are the totals?
I didn't put totals on there. I'll let the record reflect they are what they are. You guys can add them or we can add them later.
But my numbers seem bigger to me.
Okay. And the union didn't challenge under the collective bargaining agreement the number of students in your class, did that?
I did submit a roster of 30. I never heard back about it. Including to the union and the district.
All right, if I could turn you, sorry, the freshman academy you talked about, you agree that you would work in teams, correct?
Yes,
And you guys had time set aside twice a week for your team to meet together, correct?
that's again an ideal setting, an ideal settings, but we did set up the times.
And that would be Mondays and Thursdays, correct?
That's the allotted time,
And you would agree with me, you were absent a lot of Mondays, weren't you?
I would say,
And a lot of those days that you took off were Mondays,
following weekends and diet change. Yes,
and a lot of those were Fridays.
that's stress related. I could tell you more details. Happy.
And I would just submit, I think we can do these together as one, maybe serial exhibits 43. Right, where that's 43. Lost myself.
Yeah.
And S 44. So the list will be S 43 and the calendar is S 44.
Is there a date for when this enrollment is due?
I can tell you it's 21-22, but I don't have a specific day.
Is this reflecting one particular day?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
All right, so if you could show Mr. Macias S 43. You see that's a list of your absences for the 2021 school year. You just gotta say yes or no, I'm sorry.
Yes, no, thank you. I apologize.
You'll get used to that by
I
the end.
know, it's a bad habit. Yes,
And then S44, you see that's the district calendar for 2021. You see that?
Yes, I do.
And I will just say I put S's or P's down for sick or personal based on S43 for ease of reference. So you would agree with me, the 2021 school year, all of your absences were either next to a weekend of one side or the other, either Monday or Friday.
Yeah, because I had gastrointestinal problems.
And you would agree with me that you also took personal days and sick days to work on lessons, didn't you?
I don't know the policy on that, but
Did you or did you not?
I had to take off time to create lessons.
And your students were with a substitute teacher then while you were taking off time to create lessons, correct?
Excuse me?
Your students didn't have you in the classroom as a teacher while you were.
Oh, yeah, I would not. Oh, well, no. They had worked online, so virtually, they still had the curriculum.
And you were given, it's teacher 23, if you could find that. And that is the December 10th, 2021 note from Ms. Webley.
Yes,
And you see the second paragraph, and it says, during our meeting, you stated that you were aware that it had been a pattern and apologized. Is that accurate?
I was trying to not miss.
And you see, we agree going forward, any further sick requests will require you to submit a doctor's note. Do you see that?
I read that, yes, I understood it.
You didn't bring in doctor's notes when you continued to call in sick, did you?
I provided a doctor's note.
You provided one doctor's note.
I provided a doctor's note for these dates, the 9 dates.
And did you provide doctor's notes for your absences moving forward?
For the absences moving forward, I was not asked for any more.
Do you see paragraph number 3? We agree that
actually-
going forward, any future sick request would require you to submit a doctor's note. Do you see that?
When I was cleared to return to work, I didn't think I was, because I provided the doctor's note during me up to that date. So when I was cleared to return from work, I thought we were like resetting. Because it had to do with the sicknesses, and so I had problems with my doctor as well. My doctor didn't believe
I'm
me.
going to stop you there. I don't think, this is a public hearing. I don't think we need to go into
Sorry,
issues with the doctor. So you would agree with me, though, that you did not provide doctor's notes for illnesses after December 6th?
I let the district know that I could not provide a doctor's note because I was no longer working with my doctor.
And that was in June that you sent that
Yes,
notification?
it was towards the end of the school year.
And you would agree that you've had many absences between December 6th and the end of the school year?
December 6th, and the end of the school year, many absences. What does that mean?
That's all right, I'll withdraw the question. All right, if I could turn you to teacher 16. Is this a document that you created? And when I say that, let me rephrase it. Is the handwriting on this yours?
This is my analysis, my handwriting.
Okay. So you pointed out how Weaver's test scores increased. That's the section that's orange and there are arrows going up. You see that?
Weaver's green.
I'm sorry. Okay, so Weaver is green.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay. So you showed the 660. And that is your handwriting that says no loss.
Yes.
And the district. And you've got up arrows for the 3 things under there for district, straight, and total group as well, right?
District improved the score, but the number dropped, the
Okay.
total number of test takers.
And total score includes reading and math, correct?
It does.
And when you look at math, and you look at Weaver, it actually went from 335 in the fall to 323 in the spring, correct?
Because it lacks the teacher analysis.
But that is what the score shows, that Weaver went from 335 to 323, correct?
In the math, yes, for the whole freshman academy.
That's what I asked. And you agree that you missed coaching sessions with Raj Champlain because those were scheduled on days that you were absent, correct?
No,
It's your testimony, you never missed a coaching meeting with Raj Champlain?
we missed many meetings because of scheduling conflicts I was not in control of.
And-
Between the
And
coaching
then, and
the
many
school.
of those meetings were scheduled on days that you were actually absent, weren't they?
I cannot speak to the coaching or the school's scheduling. What I said was I had missed meetings because the coach and the school could not coordinate dates for the teachers to meet with coaches. So she just did me when I wasn't. At times.
Right, you had prior experience of approximately 7 years teaching before you came to Hartford?
I include the masters when I taught at the university, and that takes it to 10.
But teaching at high school level, you had 7 years?
But
And you indicated today that you had a teaching position with the Albuquerque, New Mexico School District, is that correct?
yeah, I had to leave them unfortunately.
And you actually didn't put them on your application when you applied to Hartford, did you?
I should have. I don't know what I did. Would you like to hear why I left?
I didn't ask that, no. I asked you if you put it on your application. And we are now up to S
45.
45. If I could turn you to page 7 of S45. Did you recognize this document, Mr. Macias?
Do I recognize this?
Yes.
Yeah, it looks.
This is your online application for Hartford Public Schools.
Yeah, it looks like it.
If you turn to page 7, you see you wrote down as current or most recent position was the Dallas Independent School, which you already testified about, and then previous positions, University of New Mexico, and yes, Anita Independent School District, but nowhere on here did you indicate that you worked for Albuquerque School District, did you?
It just must have slipped if I left it out.
So Hartford wasn't able to check any references for the Albuquerque School District because you didn't inform them that you worked there, is that correct?
I probably left it out because like people say to leave out most relevant, but yeah, I would have easily included. They can call them. You can call Albuquerque Public Schools as well.
And you would agree with me that it was your practice to leave school and work from home during the workday, wasn't it?
I, like many teachers, I just am one to admit it. It's a teacher behavior to leave school for a coffee or a tea and let a coworker know.
But you wouldn't just leave for coffee or tea, you would actually leave and go home, wouldn't you?
Picture this, you have health issues and you have a private restroom 10 minutes away.
It's a yes or no question. Did you leave from school to go home?
To use the restroom, yes.
Did you ever at any time inform anybody that you were leaving the school during the workday? Let me make it more specific. Did you inform administration that you were leaving during the workday?
Did I inform administration? No, initially.
It wasn't until they were looking for you and couldn't find you, it was the first time you admitted to leaving during the school day.
Until at the end of the year, and I missed covering a class like 2 minutes. Yes, I let them know it would change and I would report.
And you were supposed to report to your school building at 7:20, correct?
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
Yes or no?
I'm sorry. Yes,
And it was your practice to report later than that, wasn't it?
no, it was not.
Okay. Now, do you recall when Ms. Banks and Ms. Serrano brought your non-renewal letter to you on April 22nd?
The non-renewal letter?
Yes.
Yes, when I met them.
Yeah, so you agree that you received them on April 22nd?
The non-renewal letter?
Yes.
Yes.
And isn't it true that you told them at that time that you agreed that your teaching needed improvement?
We all do.
And isn't it true that when you spoke with Ms. Webley after she told you that she was recommending you for non-renewal, that you were going to get your students fired up to protest with you?
I was misquoted heavily.
There were questions about your schedule that were asked of other witnesses last time, and you're on that AB block, correct?
Mhm.
Gotta say yes or no.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry. And you teach 3 periods of math a day, correct?
Yes,
And then that one seminar period, which is a shorter class.
yes,
And that's the same schedule that all of the teachers have. They teach 3 academic classes and 1 seminar per day.
yes.
So your schedule isn't different than the other teachers at Weaver.
It's not different. Again, depends what you mean by different.
Okay. I have no further questions at this time.
Okay, just a couple, back to T16. Did you testify that the best analysis in test scores is to go from fall to fall?
Yeah, teacher, after showing me this data,
And what is the math score for Weaver in the fall of 2020?
340. Oh, fall of 2020, 335.
And what is the math score for Weaver in the fall of 21?
340.
Does that show improvement?
It does.
You were questioned about the students having input into the seating charts. Do high school students have a general knowledge of the ability of their classmates?
Yeah, in general, students are always sensing each other.
So would the color coding indicate anything unusual?
No, it's that every day is like,
With regard to S44, how many sick and personal days are indicated on that calendar?
15?
And does that exceed your contractual 20 sick days?
No, it does not.
And from S42, do any of your classes exceed the contractual 28 students on this chart?
I see 2 classes. that exceed.
Okay, we don't know exactly when this chart was taken. But when you mentioned that you submitted a roster of 30, was that because that was over class size?
Yeah, they asked us, I turned in an overclass size form.
And is that a procedure that is outlined in your contract?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. You have another witnesses here?
One more witness, yes.
Okay.
Yes, if you would, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And can you state your name?
Corey Moses.
Thank you.
Mr. Moses, are you a certified teacher?
Yes, I am.
And in what area are you certified?
5 to 12, social studies,
And how long have you worked for the Hartford Public Schools?
19 years.
Can you give us a brief chronology of the schools and positions that you've worked in?
I began at adult ed. And when I left adult ed, I went to Buckley High School and I worked in the building. 2 years in, I worked in alternative ed outside of Buckley High School. Then I opened High School Link. And I closed High School Link. Then I went to Buckley High School again, and I come to this position.
And what is your current position?
I'm the first vice president of the Hartford Federation of Teachers.
Okay. Let's start with, okay, tell me what number I'm up to. C24, is it?
T24, you got it.
Ah.
You got it.
Still making around.
I'm waiting, yes. Were you included in this email exchange between the HFT and Attorney Wilson?
That is correct.
And what were the dates of these emails?
September 10th, and September 14th.
And what was the nature of the exchange?
It was regarding an MOU covering conditions for COVID.
Okay, why was an MOU necessary for the 2020-2021 school year?
Because the working conditions had changed.
Looking at the attachment to this email, how many proposals did the union make?
36.
Jack, this is negotiations. This is absolutely inappropriate.
Can I just focus on one part of this
No.
document?
This is absolutely inappropriate to put this as an exhibit. If she wants to put it in.
Well, it has to do with
MOU that's
evaluation.
Actually agreed upon, I don't have an objection to that. Negotiation is not of that.
Matters going to be confidential or not. If there is
Can we then look at the actual MOU?
If you have a copy of the fully signed MOU, I will not object to that.
Is this the proposal?
Yeah, this has got it.
This is the draft.
This is a proposal from the union.
Well, the idea was to show one thing that the union asked for, but we'll look to see that it is not in here.
Negotiation and that can't come into evidence.
Okay, all right, so let's send this back, yeah. Yep.
We have one copy of the actual.
This is that's T20.
And is that the fully signed, executed MOU?
Check right now. It says final, so let me check. You are. Yes, it's signed.
Is it kind of, it's not signed by both?
Not by the
parties, so
board.
that's, again, it's not, yeah. the right document.
Okay, let me just ask you this, Mr. Moses. Are you aware that the State Department of Education offered all school districts flexibilities to their evaluation instrument in the 2020-2021 school year.
Yes, it did.
And was the union in favor of those flexibilities?
Yes, they were.
And did the district accept those flexibilities?
No, they did not.
Um, were the flexibilities, can you just explain to your knowledge what the flexibilities involved?
I'm gonna object, there's no relevance here. I mean, the state said you can. do
I believe
flexibility.
there is,
They've
as
already testified.
evaluations are a key aspect to why Mr. Macias is being non-renewed. I think looking at the evaluation is important.
We've absolutely looked at the evaluations. She wants you to look at something that the district did not choose to do, apparently.
And is this relevant to COVID-19, which were the years under which he was working?
Every single teacher gets the same evaluation process. This has
Not the
no
state.
relevance to
That's
whether
not true
he
for the
is.
state. It was
Okay.
true.
I need to not be interrupted because we are going to have a very confusing transcript.
May your objection again?
The objection is that she wants to bring in evidence, it sounds like, of things that the state was offering that Hartford Board of Education did not choose to do. It has no relevance to his non-renewal.
I do agree with that objection. So.
Okay. Then let's,
And I kind of probably ruined your,
yeah, I'm not sure there's much else I can ask if you're not gonna accept the flexibilities, which Hartford did choose not to accept. So, well, let me ask. Has the Hartford district, in the time that you have been in the union office, had a professional development and evaluation committee that was active?
The P.T.2 committee was designed to meet after the signing of the MOU.
And has that, to your knowledge, has that P.T.2 committee made any recommendations or on suggestions or revisions to the evaluation instrument?
And I'm gonna
Not to my
have the
knowledge.
same objection again, that's not the evaluation that he or any other teachers were evaluated under in 2021, 2022, if they made proposals. And the question here is of current evaluations.
It's, if I could just say that the state felt that the COVID pandemic warranted possible changes to the evaluation instruments that they were offered to the entire state. And Hartford did choose not to take those. But I think that fact is relevant to this, in that the evaluation instrument, well, let me ask this then. Were there, to your knowledge, did the evaluation instrument change at all during the years that we worked under the pandemic?
No, it did not.
Okay. Did you receive any feedback from teachers on how they felt about the evaluation instrument during the pandemic?
Again, it's gonna be the same objection, this has no relevance to this non-renewal, if other teachers gave feedback on the evaluation process. I mean, there's like 2,000 teachers in the district with the same evaluation instrument.
let's just say her objection.
I'm sorry?
Her objection. Well, it's sustained.
I can't hear you.
Sorry. The objection is sustained.
Um, So, this would be accepted. This is the document of a survey that the HFT conducted in March of 21 regarding evaluations.
I haven't seen it, but I suspect I have the same instruction.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, again, I don't see the relevance of a teacher survey to the union about what they think about the district's chosen evaluation.
Well, if you look at the question specifically about how the evaluation instruments affects virtual learning, that we were learning differently, and yet the evaluation instrument did not change. I think there is relevance there.
I completed that survey.
Just to be impartial because of relevance.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't hear
Due
you.
to, because it's not relevant, I want to be impartial here. Your objection is to something.
Okay. I have no further questions.
I do not have any questions for this witness.
Okay, are there any further witnesses? Okay, closing arguments?
I do actually have rebuttal witnesses.
Okay,
They
you-
will be short, so
Okay.
I'm hoping it might make sense because they are here that we could do that now. And
Let's do that now.
Okay.
And they were already sworn in.
they
so
were
we
already
don't have to
sworn
swear
in. They will, I promise they will be short.
Who's your first rebuttal witness?
Principal Weebly, I lost your chair somehow. All right, Principal Weebly, I'm not sure if this was before or after you came in, but Mr. Macias testified that after the pizza incident that you testified to, that you and he had a conversation and you approved him continuing to use pizza in his classroom. Is that accurate? No. Did you have any other conversations with him about pizza after that pizza party incident? No. And you heard Mr. Macias talk about color coding students as to their level, and the students knew what color coded they were as a principal. Do you have any response to that?
I don't think it's appropriate, especially, yes, we know their abilities, but I don't think it's appropriate when you have students being aware of that, the levels, and being able to discuss it definitely impacts self-esteem. So that is not something that we typically share whenever we're looking at data. If there is a data wall or anything like that, information that identifies the student will be omitted.
I have nothing further for this witness.
Would you like to pass it in?
No question.
Okay. And I have another
And
rebuttal
then
witness.
Michelle.
You are ready to stand in.
All right, Ms. Kellogg, I'm going to show you what we are going to label as, what are we up to? 46.
You are 46 now, yeah.
As 46.
Sorry.
So if you have in front of you what is labeled Superintendent's 46, can you explain to the board what this is?
I'm sure. On the top half, there are results of 2 of our district interim assessments. So the top graphic are the results of our Algebra 1, IA1, it's the first assessment given during the 21-22 school year. And it's a comparison of how Hartford performed versus how Weaver performed versus how Mr. Macias performed and his colleague, Ms. McCracken, who is also in the freshman academy.
Yes, please.
Sure. If you look at the results, again, the gray bar at the top is the average percent correct. So for example, on the IA1, Hartford as a whole, Algebra 1 students had an average test score of 39.7. Directly below, Mr. Macias had an average test score of 23.9, which is below the Weaver High School average, compared to Mary Kate McCracken, who had a 33.9%, which is above the Weaver High School comparison.
And keep going down and explain what the rest of this is and what you take from it.
Sure. Directly below it are the results of the IA2, which is our Algebra 1 midterm, which shows the same trend. That Mr. Macias scored below Mary Kate McCracken, and that his was below Weaver, whereas hers was higher. What's conflicting is the grade distribution graphics that are below. So this is data taken from our RISE dashboards, which displays the grade distribution in each of the respective courses that these teachers teach. And so I think what is worth flagging here is that if you look at Mr. Macias, if you look at his grade breakdown compared to that of Ms. McCracken, who is his partner teacher, we see a lot more green and yellow in Mr. Macias versus in Ms. McCracken, a lot more orange, red, and light orange, which when taken as a whole, if we compare the grade distribution to the actual student achievement data, there is a discrepancy. Ms. McCracken's student achievement data is higher, and it matches up more closely to what appears to be her grade distribution versus Mr. Macias, which seems to be higher grade distribution, but lower student achievement.
All right, and then you heard testimony from Mr. Macias that a fall-to-fall measure is a better measure of success. Can you give a reaction to that?
So if we're talking about impact on student, most of what we measure is fall to spring. So the student learning objective, which is a core part of the teacher evaluation, actually requires a goal to be set in the fall. And
Slow down.
Sorry.
With the
Friday.
mask, it's hard, you're talking fast.
Yes, and I'm sorry about the mask.
That's okay.
Fall to spring is a measure of my students, how they came to me, how they scored as a baseline versus how they score at the end of the school year, which is impact of my teaching, right? And that is at the core of how the student learning objective is designed. When we look at large scale student achievement data, we primarily look at a cohort of students, which typically has us looking at fall to spring. You can look at fall to fall, but it is important to note the difference in the data that Mr. Macias shared, which would be different cohorts of students versus the same cohort of students.
So if you're looking fall to fall, you're comparing different students' achievements in two different falls.
You could be, yes. In the data that was shared, versus given that it was a school year to another school year in freshman Algebra 1, it would have been, I would assume, two different groups of students.
And there was testimony about graphing calculators. Are you aware whether graphing calculators were provided to Weaver?
Yes, so we provided, I believe, around 180 graphing calculators to Weaver High School.
And as far as textbooks, you heard testimony about there not being sufficient textbooks in Mr. Macias's room. Does the district provide textbooks?
We provide the student textbooks, which are the disposable workbooks to every student.
And going back to the day that you observed Mr. Macias's class, did you see evidence that the students have been using those textbooks?
No, as I stated in my first testimony, that day was the first day they were being utilized for instruction.
I have nothing further.
Ms. Gill?
Yes, what was the date of these assessments? What year were they?
These are from 21-22. The top assessment would have been given, I believe, in late September, early October. The 21-22 IA2 is our midterm, so that's mid-January.
Okay, thank you. So from September to January, did Mr. Macias show improvement in his scores?
There is some improvement, yes.
And from September to January, was there mild decline in the crack in the scores?
From September to January, very slightly.
Okay. When you mentioned that the graphing calculators were distributed to Weaver, were they distributed directly to Mr. Macias's classroom?
So they are delivered to Weaver. Typically, the personnel, usually the math coach at the building level, is responsible for distributing them. But every I have to go back and look at our records. Every Algebra 1 classroom has been equipped with a class set of graphing calculators.
So can you verify that the coach provided those calculators to Mr. Macias?
I can't say yes or no, but that was the intent, that they arrived to Weaver and they were distributed to each classroom to have a class set.
I understand the intent. You don't have verification that he actually received them. But did he sign off on something, or how is that distribution done in a way that?
That I'm not aware of, but if they're not received, we should be made aware.
And is the same process for textbooks? They go to the coach?
Correct. That's the first thing that is delivered each first week of the school year, or before that, ideally.
Okay, and then from the coach, it's an internal distribution to the teachers.
Correct, and that's part of their entry plan work, so that's the priority. Week before, we've got to make sure every teacher has all of their textbooks and materials, which would have included calculators as well, depending on when they arrive to the school.
And is there verification that those textbooks indeed got distributed to Mr. Macias's classroom?
We don't have a formal sign off, but we verify through the team that they've been delivered to the classroom. I can verify visually that those books were in Mr. Macias's classroom the day I absorbed at least.
No further questions.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Great. Closing arguments?
What?
Sorry, Mass, closing arguments.
We would prefer to do briefs. I think there's a lot here that I think we need to.
All right, gonna do that. please, and then-
Why don't we go off the record for a brief moment if that's okay with everyone, so we could talk about
Process.
timing and what.
I just want to be clear off the record, we're still in public,
We are
so you're not, she's not typing, but.
We are recording.
Just wanted to make sure.
Well, should we close this meeting then, and then have the off the record?
No, I don't think we need that. I think we should keep the
Yeah.
meeting open,
Yeah.
just so it's clear.
Yeah. So there's no
What our
misunderstanding.
next steps are, and then we'll go back on the record for the court reporter to identify the dates and next steps. So I think we'd be looking to each side to tell us their need for how much time, knowing that, of course, we
What
want
is
to
that
wrap this up.
My first question from the court reporter is how long until we can get a transcript?
I mean, it's a 10-day turnaround,
Okay.
10 working days.
Okay.
So
Okay.
So we start with that, just to ensure.
So 10 business days.
So that gets us to the 16th.
Yep.
So we're probably looking, what, a week to 2 weeks after that?
I'm sorry?
A week to 2 weeks after the 16th?
I would need at least till the end of September.
I know that, I was trying to
Yeah.
push, but it's better for me the end of September, so I'm fine with that.
So we're looking end of September for that, so
I am a work on the weekend
Yeah,
kind of
actually,
person, so can we look at October 3rd?
I was
Actually,
going
I have-
to suggest that.
Can
First
we
week
do
of
October 7th?
A Friday. One second. Let me just take a look at the schedule.
I mean, that's just for us turning the briefs in.
Okay, so we don't have to be here, we don't,
No,
that's just,
So
Okay,
once the
so we're
briefs
set,
come
yeah.
in, then we will schedule.
we'll get together, review it.
another.
October 7th. Okay, does that work for you, Ms. Gunn?
Sure.
So why don't we, if it makes sense to everyone, maybe you both should submit the briefs to me on the 7th. And then I will make sure that you each get copies, and then once we have both of them, I will make sure that the committee gets briefs, copies of the briefs. And then that will trigger us to, on our end, schedule another meeting that would typically be an executive session unless there's a request that it not be, where we, the committee convenes to make their decision. And then thereafter, that recommendation would go to the full board. That's the process.
So everyone's in agreement with the date?
Yes, thank you.
Right,
Okay.
so let's go back on the record
Yes.
just to put in the transcript.
Okay, so October 7th, the board subcommittee will receive the brief on each side. Then from there, we will convene as a subcommittee, make a determination, make the recommendation to the full board. And this is the position we need them. Does that sound like a plan?
Thank you.
Anything further before we close out? No? Okay, so it's 4:23. I'm calling this meeting to adjourn.
Great, thank you.
Yay,
very much.
happy Friday.
See you soon.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I know. I got the rubber bands.
I think I have more rubber bands.
Do you?
than anyone needs, though.
I do.
Always count on an attorney because I have a rubber band.